living La Vida low carb. This show is changing lives. We talking about your diet, trying to get you feeling right. Cut up them avocados, fry some eggs, time to explore the longest running health podcast, hosted by Jimmy Moore. Time to give up the crappy garbage, we're getting into ketosis. Every day is a new step to your goal, yeah, you're getting closer. Motivated and focused, don't stop, just go. Time to get inspiration from the Living La Vida Low Carb Show. Hey, the livinglowcarbshow.com.
Guys, that right there is Ed Fackler. You may know him over on Instagram. He is ultra fat, the #2 ultra runner. Go check him out. Just as I try to show it, it disappears. There we go. Ultra fat 2. Yes, and you're out there. You are an incredible weight loss success story, but you would be the first person to say the weight loss was cool and all, but it's not the biggest thing that changed for you. So real excited to get into your story here in a minute. But I was telling them that the reason you're here today is you're tired of people always chasing this elusive potion, pill, protocol to get healthy. And there's no such thing. It literally takes two words, right? Hard work.
Right. And I 100% agree with that. And I think you and I chatted a little bit over the last week or so. And even this morning, I was thinking about that. And I think the hard work, I mean, a couple things. Hard work, it's going to take time.
Yes.
You're unless you are Samantha Stevens, aka Elizabeth Montgomery, from the TV show Bewitched. My wife actually.
You're showing your age now.
Well, my wife actually has that as her notification tone.
Oh yeah,
because she's this cute little blonde, and it's like that little tinkle thing. And so unless you're a wit.
Hold on. For the youngins and the millennial and Gen Z crowd, that was called Bewitched. Go look it up. So. Right.
It was a good show back in the day. But yeah, I mean, unless you have the ability to instantaneously make magic happen.
Yes.
It's going to take time, which of course flies in the face of the whole immediate gratification thing that we've got going on these days.
Yes, and look, in the state you were in when you started, you would have loved for it to have been quick. But look, you would not have learned the lessons that you did along the way. Right. Let's back up. How big did you get?
The highest I ever was weighted was 407.
407 is big. My biggest was 410. So I
right. So we're right.
How tall are you?
I don't know. I may be shrinking, but I'm 5'10" is what I use as my driver's license says.
Okay. So if you're 5'10", maybe 5'9", 5'9.5".
Right.
Yeah, that was a lot of weight on that stature. At least mine was 6'3". I'm not trying to excuse it that it was good, but I hit it better.
It spread out more.
Yeah,
right.
Hit it a lot better. A lot of people didn't realize when I told them what my starting weight was. They're like, "Whoa, you did not look that. You were big, but you didn't look 400 pounds."
Exactly. Yeah. And actually, what you were talking about, I would have loved to have that opportunity to wiggle my nose and have something magic happen. I actually wrote something about 4 years ago called "I Would Do Anything." Mm. And I remember having a talk with a friend of mine who lives up in Nashua, New Hampshire. His name is Randy Pierce. And we were at a tailgate for a football game. And I remember saying to him, dude, I would do anything to be fit and trim.
Yeah.
And he's blind. So, I mean, but he knew I was big. So he was like quiet for a second and he said, do you really mean that?
Right.
And
pretty sure.
And at the time, I'm like, yeah, and then what's your price limit, And I think, and later he brought that back up again to me like a year or two later, and it struck a chord where I realized the answer to what would you do, or what would you give to be fit and trim and healthy. Yeah. It's not about magic. It's about like, well, here's a radical idea. Make little changes every day.
Right.
And sustain that over a period of time. Are you willing to do that horrible thing?
And look, therein lies the problem. People get to this point of desperation where they say things like, I would do anything to ... And what they don't realize is incremental changes over time compound and build. there's this concept of just be 1% better every day. And people think
right.
you're 365% better at the end of the year. No, you're 3,000% better. And so,
compound interest.
What's that?
Compound interest.
It compounds. And so 1% better, yeah, it's a bit subjective, but look, if you're always pursuing better, eventually you're going to get there, and you just have to have the patience in the meantime to not lose focus of what you're trying to do. I want to get into your story, though, specifically. So you were at 407, 5 foot 9.5 inches tall, and you needed to lose weight, obviously. Did you have any known health issues? How old were you, by the way?
So this was 10 years ago, and you know, I was shortness of breath. I didn't. My wife is fairly certain that I was pre-diabetic, but I was too stubborn to go to a doctor to confirm that. I had high blood pressure, but again, I didn't do anything for it. I wasn't taking medication. So I mean, there was stuff going wrong. My father was morbidly obese. My mom was heavy and obese when she finally passed away, actually from breast cancer. But yeah, I mean, there wasn't. It was. I mean, I actually had edema on my ankles and legs, and if you look at pictures on my Instagram account, you'll see pictures of from my knees down. There's a band of like dark brown, purple skin, and I remember like people were like, "Oh my gosh, what's wrong with your legs?" And I was like, I don't know. It's like just from my fatness, like I mean, basically, I knew what it was, but you never really wanted to talk about it because you were embarrassed. And I was at work when I lived in Japan. I always wore the same. I had like 15 pairs of socks. They were identical. They always came to the same height, and everything above that, my legs would swell with water. And at some point, the water would push out through my skin, create water blisters on my legs. It itched and was painful, so I would scratch it, and they would pop open. And doing that repeatedly caused scar tissue. Yeah. And even now, years later, it's still there.
So, so you said 10 years ago. What were you, in your 30s, 40s? I don't know how old.
No, I'm 58 as of like last month, so I was like 47, 48.
Okay, all right. Just trying to get a perspective that started pretty much later in life than a lot of people on weight loss journeys. Yes, I'm 49, so when you kind of get to this age, it becomes a lot more, whoa, better do something now before something bad happens. And so, all right, so you had all this stuff going on with your legs, with the edema, 407 pounds. I'm assuming your quality of life sucked.
Yeah, it was, well, man, the thing is, I think we rationalize a lot.
Yeah.
And so many people around me, I hear making excuses all the time.
Yeah.
And the same excuses I made.
Yes.
Except their life, they're not broken enough to flip that switch. And I said to a lot of people, the reason you're not changing is because you're not facing imminent mortality.
Yes.
It hasn't hurt enough for you to start to change.
Well, look what you did with the edema. Oh, that's just what happens when you get fat. You were like rationalizing it in your head, even though you knew something worse was happening. And so, but you rationalized it in your head of, oh, okay, it's just a part of getting older, getting fatter. It is what it is. Right.
But I mean, there was no question my lifestyle was causing the problem.
What were you?
What I was. Well, I lived in Japan, and so I got into the habit. Football, I love American football, and you have to clarify because football is also soccer. There you go.
Cowboy.
We don't agree on that one, but it's like there's 32 teams.
Patriots, that's right.
I'm a Patriots fan, so and have been since '76.
As long as they beat Tom Brady, that'll be cool.
Sunday night. I don't think it's going to happen. They got some problems right now, but yeah, but I would get up. So football in Japan would come on Monday morning at like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning because of the time difference. And so what I would do is on Sunday night, right before Domino's and Pizza Hut would close, and I lived alone. So I would order like a large pizza. I'd order like a 2-liter bottle of, soda. And then they'd have specials going on. We're like, oh, well, chicken wings and, tater tots and stuff. And I would have a ridiculous amount of calories. When you eat those, you'd stay up to listen to the game, and then you'd go to sleep or not. But I mean, you're eating at the worst possible time of the day. And I think that is like 17, 18 weeks. It's like half the year.
So wait, Ed, you only had one large pizza? Because back in my day, it was like 2 was like the starting order. So.
Okay.
Dude.
No, yeah, I don't know. I was on like the hand toss, the thicker ones. It wasn't like a nice New York cut.
Yeah, I like that back in the day when I was eating crap. Pizza Hut's really thick pizza, they kind of started that trend, and then other ones picked up on it. But you're right, that is a lot of food if you get the thick cut.
Yeah, I mean, and it got to the point where like I would call them like 10 minutes before closing.
Ah.
And they would say, oh, Edo-san, konbanwa, and they'd speak to, like, they knew the number. I mean, like, it was such habit.
I worked at Domino's, and yeah, we'd have everything cleaned like 10 minutes before closing, and then somebody would call in an order, and I'm like, So,
like, they knew it was Sunday night. They knew there was a pizza coming from me. I mean, I would try and not wait but it was like, I would get the order in before they closed. Right.
So it would sit there while you're, I guess, resting before the game starts. So
yeah, but I would start eating a while, and then I'd start listening to the game, and typically I had to listen because we couldn't watch it on TV.
Right.
So but that was one of the many habits I had, and then before I came back to the States, I actually got down. I lost 80 pounds because a friend from another country who worked for our same English school got it in my face one night, and after a business meeting, we were out. She was definitely under the influence, and she got in my face and like really let me have it, saying, "Look, I love you. You're my friend." She goes, "I can't not tell you this, but like it's embarrassing to be with you." And it's funny. Like it took her getting drunk to say what she felt, and probably other people felt.
Yes, dude, I had a experience not with a drunk person, but with a 6th grader. I was a substitute teacher in 2003 in the fall, and I remember subbing that day in an English class, and I was writing the lesson on the board, and I can remember it. I'm writing on the board, and right back there, I hear this boy's voice to this day. He went, "Man, Mr. Ford, you're really fat."
Wow.
And of course, the whole room starts like laughing their heads off, and I laugh to keep from crying. Dark, when you heard that from your friend in their drunken state, where you're like, "Wow, that's what they really think."
Yeah, I mean, it hurt really badly. And I'm like, "No, I get you, blah, blah, whatever." But then, like the next morning, I had to go back to Osaka to take the bullet train back. And I was thinking about it, and then that was like Friday night.
Yes.
And starting Sunday, I started making changes.
Right.
And so basically almost a whole week went by, and on Friday, it's almost a week after that incident, I called her up at her office in Tokyo, and I said, I won't use her name, but we'll call her Becky, but because that's not even close to her name. I said, "Becky," and you could tell like she was afraid to talk to me because I think she kind of remembered what she did. And I said, I have something I need to say to you, and I want you just to shut up and listen. And she's like, "Okay." And then I said, "It really hurt a lot what you said, but it was exactly what I needed to hear. And since that time, I've made these changes in how I'm eating, when I'm eating, and what I'm eating, and I've already lost 12 pounds. Like in a week, I lost 12. But when you're 407,
oh yeah,
you can drop. If you really go hardcore, you can drop weight fast.
It was 15 for me in the first week.
Right. So and then I kept with that, and in like the 5 or 6 months before I returned to the United States permanently, I had lost 80
Real
pounds.
Good Foods is one of the fastest growing frozen food companies in the U.S. Everything they make is nutrient dense, high in protein, low in carbs, and made from real food ingredients. They make food for every occasion: breakfast sandwiches, poppers, enchiladas, entrees, and pizza. So whether you're on a keto diet, trying to cut back on your carbs, or just trying to eat healthier, they make super convenient and tasty options. RealGoodFoods.com and at Real Good Foods on social media.
Okay, so pause there a second, because here you had this very crass, in-your-face realization of the problem. And here's the thing. People think, why don't fat people know that they're fat? Guess what? They do.
They do.
We do. We know. We don't need you to shout it from the mountaintops. I guess sometimes, and in this case, when it came out of a friend's mouth, it shakes you a bit. And when it came out of that grader's mouth, that what was ironic was the kid's like a little chubby little sixth grader and calling me fat. But anyway, that's another story.
Right.
It was something that shook you awake, but not recommended. I mean, are you of the opinion that being crass and in people's face is the way to go, or is there a loving approach, or is there something halfway between those two that will reach people?
As the Japanese would say, case by case.
Yeah.
Which does not help. I mean, that description doesn't help, but
think about a narcissist, obese person. They're never going to listen to whatever you have to say, no matter how you say it.
Right.
But if someone is truly already even subconsciously thinking, I need to change, I just don't know what to do. And it sounds like you're in that spot. I was most certainly in that spot. And it became this kind of cascade of, okay, the kid said that. I tried to get on a carnival rock climbing wall. There was a carnival. I couldn't do it. It was a cognitive dissonance of, I thought I could.
Right.
There was no way I could at 410 pounds. And then I got a diet book for Christmas, which was about a low-carb diet. So it was a lot of things that kind of led up to me being ready to do this. When you took the bull by the reins right away.
Even at that point, it wasn't low carb. It was still the normal eat less, move more.
Right. But the point
type stuff.
You were driven into action to at least pursue something that would help move the scale and get you healthier.
Yes, exactly.
So got back to the U.S.
I got back to the U.S., lived with my mom for a while because she was going through cancer therapy at the time. And then I moved to Chicago to pursue acting and comedy at Second City. Yeah. So I studied there for about a year and a half, and then I worked at different odd jobs around the city. But then I started putting weight back on. Yeah. Because I had like a crazy, not that I was living this debaucherous life, but it was just like I was running around doing things, and there was lack of structure for me. And I really do better with structure in my eating. And look, you need not just structure in your eating, but structure in your life. You were still up in the air about what you're doing in your life, where you're going to get gigs and all the things that you were pursuing. So that chaos in life leads to stress, and stress cause make you comfort eat, and even the stress itself can put on pounds. Right. I mean, like now I know things like the stress results in the release of cortisol, into your body, which drives things that, and that's the thing that I always find amusing is when people are like, if you just eat less, move more, this will fix everything. And I'm like, okay, we all have different genes, and I hate to say that we're all different because I don't think we really are, but there are micro differences. But some people are more prone to store body fat than others. And then and I have a theory about that, and I've expressed it. I haven't seen any studies on it, but I would love to see it researched. Once you become insulin resistant, which if you get to 400 plus pounds like you and I did, we were heavily insulin resistant. But once you do that, you actually become stress resistant as well. So that the impact of stress is much higher. Like an insulin resistant than when you eat carbohydrate, you have maybe a 10 to 15 times kind of response to those carbohydrate as someone who's more insulin sensitive. I think the same happens with stress. You have a more susceptibility to that impacting your blood sugar, your insulin, and all the other kind of hormones, and it hits you harder. Yeah, I have no problem, again, like you, I haven't seen a study on that, but I have no problem thinking that is probably what really happens as well. Yeah. And along that same line, I think the problem that too many people do, or the way they approach it, is that they're like, well, what's this? Again, you're back to the magic pill thing or whatever. Like, what's the one thing I need to do to get fit and thin? And the problem is, like, okay, there may be one thing you can do to start.
Yeah.
But at some point, you have to bolt on a second thing and a third thing and a fourth thing. And when you put those all together, it becomes more powerful, and then you can actually achieve a lot more. You can see more sustained results.
If I had to say one thing to start, whatever you do, consistent.
Yes. That's like on that end, I started not quite 3 years ago. So this is like well into my journey, but I kept seeing these things like, winners and successful people get up early. They get up early. They get up early. So I set myself, I'm going to get up before 5 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, yeah.
I'm now at like day 1062 or something. And I get there and every day I post, a picture of my watch on what time, and since my 100-mile race like 2 weeks ago, it's getting really close to 5 o'clock. So I got to push that back down around again.
Yeah.
But like it's and then my wife said to me a couple weeks ago, she's like, okay, you had this grueling, horrible race.
Yeah.
You're going to sleep in today, right? I'm like, she's like, you can sleep in today. I'm like, yes, I can. I won't, but I can.
So let's get into your low carb journey. When did that come into the picture? You were in Chicago seeking things, gaining weight again. When did you find out about low carb? How did you tell us that story?
Okay, so I would because back on 4 years ago, 4.5, I guess it was the Christmas 2017 was. I mean, this is years. This is still like a couple of years. So even then I went down, then back up. So I mean, quick little aside before that. Yes, the whole yo-yo thing. I have lost 100 pounds 5 times.
Yes.
And so people are like, well, you have no willpower. I'm like, and then someone else would say, like, if you lose 100 pounds.
It was 4 for me.
Exactly. And then twice I've lost 170 or more.
Once.
And it doesn't mean that it's forever.
No.
And so I think it was in January of 2018, my wife picked up a book. And it's a daisy chain of books. And I'm not saying these are the books that in the order that people should read them, but this is just how it was for me. So the first book, she said, she found a book on Kindle, and she read it and said, like, I really think you need to read this. And because she's my wife, so I'm like, yeah, okay, what, And she's like, no, and she didn't hammer me, but she would casually, and she like left the Kindle around for me. And it was Fitness Confidential by Vinnie Tortorich.
Tortorich, yes.
And then from there, that made me aware of a couple of things. And then from there, I think I read The Obesity Code by Jason Fung.
Yeah.
And then I read this book. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it or not. It's called The Complete Guide to Fasting.
I've heard of it somewhere.
You've heard of it? Yeah. And my wife this morning was just like, I forgot that's today. And she said, who knew when we were reading all of these books with Jimmy Moore that you would get a chance to talk to him at some point down the road? And she's like, are you excited? And I'm like, he's just a regular guy. I mean, he just happened to write some really great and really helpful books. And by the way, before I forget, thank you. Because all of your books have been very instrumental and helpful. I have them on audio. I will say the Keto Clarity one, by the end, I wanted to break it because of the
clarity, the ding.
The dings drove me nuts.
My producer that did the ding said, yeah, if you've gotten the audiobook of either cholesterol or Keto Clarity, there was a part of it in there that I came up with called Moment of Clarity Quotes. And so my producer, God bless him, he that is when we went to Moment of Clarity Quote, Dr. Wilson Davis. He put this loud like ding in there, and I'm like, dude, that's annoying as hell. Even I thought it was annoying.
Yeah, and I mean, I've listened to all of your books. I mean, and like many times. So I mean, when I run or when I was at that stage when I was walking, I would listen to them, and then come back a couple months later and just refresh things.
Yeah.
And you're like, I really hate those days.
Here's what it did. It gave you a bit of adrenaline rush because you hated it. And so then you were able to walk a little faster at that
Yes.
moment.
Yes, exactly. So, and then from there, you know, and actually the whole thing, I got into what keto was because my wife said, look, our friend, we'll call her Brenda. It's going to all the B's today. We'll call her Brenda. So Brenda was doing this, a meal replacement system. And I'm like, look, you know, these things don't work. They're unsustainable. They're as expensive as crap. And she said, yeah, but like our friend Brenda has had really good success with it. She goes, I think you just need, she goes, I've seen the fire in your eye before when you're on track, you're making it work. She goes, I just want, she goes, if you get started, all you need is that ignition for the booster rocks to take off. And I think you'll take off and go. And when I was reading the documentation, which I think a lot of people who do this meal replacement system don't do, I actually read the books.
Yes.
And they mentioned this weird and freaky thing called ketosis. And like, if you follow our meal plans, they'll put you into a light state of ketosis. I'm like, well, I haven't even heard, what the world, is ketosis a real thing? So I started looking that up. And that led to Keto Clarity. That led to Jason Fung. That led to Gary Taubes. You know, Nina Teicholz, you know, and all, I mean, there's just too many people to name. So like in about in the first year and a half, I listened to 200 books.
Wow.
I mean, now that's not just nutrition. That also included like heart rate training and running and fitness. But it was like, and then the fun thing was, like with your book and like Jason Fung's book, you would see the crossovers.
Yes.
They're reinforcing each other.
Yes.
And so that was, for me, was like, okay, I am on the right track. Like this, and besides, weight was flying off. In my first 6 months, I lost 100 pounds in 6 months exactly.
Yes.
And
yeah.
I've totally kept that off.
It was 100 pounds in 100 days when I was 4'10" to start.
Wow.
So motivated, Ed. I wanted this off my body. And I was doing all the things, and I wasn't starving myself. I started exercising, but like, you know, you said you started off walking. You know, that's kind of the first step to kind of get going. So for me, it was walking 3 miles an hour on a treadmill, still at 380 pounds, 3 miles an hour, pathetically slow now. But then it was all I tell people I was weightlifting, Ed, because I was lifting a lot of weight and my legs were getting muscular.
You were, but yes. And the the other thing is, and people are like, well, I can't run because I'm too heavy. I'm like, good, because if you tried to run, you'd really mess your body up. Oh, like you would destroy your knees, you would destroy your feet, your arches, and at that weight, you really do need to walk, just because otherwise you will break your body.
Yeah, you know, I'm on this sabbatical to 50 journey that I'm.
Yes.
By the way, I see you peeking in at my Instagrams that I do every day. Thank you for that. And
Thank you.
Some days it's everything I can do just to get through that walk. Now the walk has some good hills in there, and I'm getting a good workout. So I'm getting better on the hills where I'm not getting as winded. But there's no way I could even jog right now. Although today, as of the recording of this, I did go further than I've ever gone, and I keep getting further. In fact, it's day 31 after the recording of this, and on day 1 there was like a little marker. And today, I passed that day 1 30-minute marker in 20 minutes.
Nice. And that's the other fun thing, too, is NSVs, non-scale victories, setting markers for like, okay, it took me this long, do that long. And running, that's easy to do.
Yes.
Because your watch tells you, okay, you ran a mile in 14 minutes.
Oh, the Oura gave me an update. So the Oura Ring just updated.
Oh.
You'll probably get this on your app if you haven't checked it already. But they just said, if you're doing any kind of exercise, we will track it for you. We will tell you how fast you are walking. We will tell you the distance. So now I'll have a quantifiable way of seeing my progress on this journey. Right. Yeah. I thought you were going to say that your ring, like one of my NSVs is my ring will has at times just my wedding band just falls off. I'm not quite there yet, but I am losing weight. So. We were in Seattle probably like 2 years ago when everything was at my absolute lowest. It was that trip. And I reached out to grab the chair. My wife and I went out to dinner, and I was just having water because I was in the middle of a fast as well.
And literally my ring flew across the restaurant because, well, thankfully there was no one there. There were like 5 people in the restaurant. So it was fairly easy to track down.
Well,
But that,
if you had to go run after that, you don't want this investment to go away.
no. But yeah, and so I think with that, so at that time, so then I got down to, and I was chasing longer and longer fasts.
Yeah.
Just because, and I liked what it was, the multitude of things it was doing. And I was tracking my blood sugar. I was tracking my my ketones as well, and so I was doing all of that. And now I don't track them as much because now I know
you don't need to.
And because ketone tracking is expensive. It's like $1 a pop.
Look,
Keto can be hard. Tabulating, measuring, baking, taking 3 months to perfect one recipe, and to mixed reviews.
Did something die in here? Oh, I think it moved.
And by that point, you give up your diet, find a dark corner, and stuff yourself with sugar, carbs, and regret.
This, isn't what it looks like.
Well, this is where Keto Chow saves the day. The easiest, tastiest, ketoist meal replacement on the market.
It's like ice cream melted in my mouth.
Yes, but melted ice cream with all the protein, nutrients, vitamins, and electrolytes your body needs.
Oh, that's cool.
And with 3 starter kits, each with restaurant tips, keto food guides, and a ton of flavors to try, your taste buds and your waistline will thank you.
Thank you.
So grab your starter kit today at jimmylovesketochow.com.
It's so easy.
Keto Chow. Make keto easy.
I've done this a very long time. I started first ketone tracking with blood. Everybody's picked on a stick. It's gross. Don't do that. And it's not accurate. But once you start pricking your finger, I started doing that in maybe late 2011, I think was the first time I tried it. And I was like, whoa. And it was $6 a strip at that time. It's come down.
Yeah. Wow.
The Keto Mojo and some of the Coach, all these ones that are out there now, much cheaper than when Jimmy Moore first started.
Yeah, and that's the more prevalent it becomes, the better price points there are and things like that. So to that end, I'm mindful, and if I'm doing a longer fast, sometimes I'll just check in just to see how things are going.
Yeah.
But it scares me to think what my blood sugar was like when I was at 407, because I definitely never checked it then.
No. And I'm sure, like you said earlier, your wife thought, okay, you're pre-diabetic. And same thing, like I just knew that I was.
Right. I mean, I was, on one hand I was in denial. I'm like, but my father was diabetic. He was type 2.
Yeah.
And then what really, I think, to mix my metaphors, frosts my gears instead of grinding my gears. What frosts my gears is how so many doctors will say, well, and this has happened to friends of mine as well. They're like, they're type 2 diabetic, and the doctor's like, just get used to it. Like, this will be with you for the rest of your life. And it's such a lie.
It's so horrible. And Jason Fung does a brilliant video on YouTube. You guys can go look it up, about the 2 big lies about diabetes, that it's progressive and that you'll just have to deal with it for the rest of your life. And both of them are huge lies. You can change it with diet and lifestyle.
Right, and the first time I think I personally came face to face with that was a resource librarian in San Francisco when we were out there doing business, and I walked into this presentation we were doing, and she says, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm here for the lunch presentation." I couldn't understand. Like, she knew who I was, and she's like, "No." She goes, "What are you doing? Because you look amazing." And so because I in the 6 months that we had seen her, I dropped a lot of weight and was looking, tightening everything up. And she said, and I was talking to her, and I said, well, like, the cool thing is, like, and this, what I'm doing can even help, this is obviously not you, but for someone who has type 2 diabetes. And she said, wait, what? And I said, someone who has type 2 diabetes, but that's not you. And she goes, actually, it is me. She goes, I was just diagnosed last week by my doctor. And he gave her like a prescription for metformin, I want to say it is.
Yeah.
And she's like, so how do I get off this? And he's like, I think it's something I think you need to realize. You're going to be on this for the rest of your life. And she's like, okay, I'm getting a new doctor because this is not going to walk. And she goes, I wasn't taking this. Now you're saying I have to take it. What? There's got to be a way for me not to take this.
Well, and think about it from an ancestral standpoint. We didn't have diabetes until we had the Industrial Revolution bring on easy accessibility to mostly refined carbohydrate. So why do we assume that it's this thing that just pops up and then suddenly you're going to need a drug, which, by the way, didn't even exist a century ago? How did they deal with it? Did they fall dead in the streets? No, there wasn't the prevalence of type 2 diabetes. So then you kind of make correlations, and they're not always causation, but you make the correlations. When did we see the ramping up of diabetes and obesity and heart disease and all the things in America? It was in 1980 was where we really saw it starting to ramp up. What happened in 1980? The dietary guidelines that pushed us to low fat, high carb, high grain type,
because it was healthy. Yes.
Healthy whole grains, and indirectly to sugar because, oh, it's not fat. Sugar's fat free. In fact, when I did my low fat diet in 1999, I drank lots of Coca-Cola. No fat in it at all.
And here's a happy note. Do you know that marshmallows are a fat-free food?
Naturally fat-free.
Naturally fat-free. So, but yeah, and so I don't know. And she was like, send me some information. She goes, I want to do this. And sadly, I don't think she ever, you know, as I said before, she wasn't broken enough.
Yes.
Because she doesn't look like she's type 2 diabetic. She's not large.
And this,
you know, and
this is a huge problem. I am so thankful for my obesity, because when you get obese and you know, you can do something because there's this sense of urgency, because you've got societal pulls. You've got that friend that was drunk that called you fat and you need to get your act together. I had the 6th grader call me fat. But what if I didn't have the fat and I still had all the same metabolic issues that I had to deal with as a bigger person? Nobody would know. And I've since learned that if you've got fat on the body, your body's being protected because of that fat. It's the people that don't put on fat and yet still have the metabolic dysfunction. Right. They're the most susceptible.
You said something a while ago which really triggered a thought and a memory for me when you said, like, at 410, I wanted this weight off as fast as possible. And that was very much my approach, which is why I took 100 pounds off in 6 months. Yeah. Because I was, like, attacking it like it was war.
Yes.
And so many times I see people who are even bigger than me when I was, 500, 600 pounds, they're like, well, you don't want to take it off too fast. I was like, if you take off 3 pounds a month, it's going to take you like 120 years. You're going to be dead before that. I mean, you'll be dead from the residual domino effect of ailments that are extending from that. I said, like, you can get after it. I mean, there's a gentleman up in, I want to say Alberta. He's up in Western Canada. And he's on Instagram too. And I want to say his name is his handle's like Fat Chance Trying. And he lost in 1 year 250 pounds. And he's gone more like carnivore / low carb, he's in that same vein of mindset. But he has pictures that are frightening of him from before. He was in like 600 pounds, and yet he went, in 1 year he lost 250 pounds. Most people, that's easily that's one obese person. He didn't lose a person, he lost an obese person.
Yeah. And
he's living to survive it, and he's way healthier, he's way better off. Yes, that is him. Good guy. Yes, exactly. So he's not done yet, but he's crushing it, and he's an inspiration, because I remember he was like closing on the end of his first year, and I remember telling him, I said, dude, do not take your foot off the gas.
Yes.
I said, I lost 106 in six months. I said, double that is 200. I said, you need to lose. I'm not trying to put pressure on him, but I'm trying to inspire him. You have the ability in this situation right here, right now, with your story and your life, to really set some benchmarks. Like, if you can do this, and I keep going to the doctor, keep getting stuff checked out. 250 it blows up what I did, and I'm excited for him that he did that, and so, and he's a truck driver, which is like one of the worst professions you could possibly have to try and lose weight.
I have a friend right now, and she's a truck driver, and she's all the time, she's watching my journey, and she's like, Oh, I would just love to just go out on a walk with you. And, and walk is just, I'm sitting on my butt all day, but I do my best to try to get movement when I have the breaks. And yeah, that's a tough job. But the fact that he's been that successful, having to sit on his rear for hours upon hours upon hours a day. So those of you that listen on the podcast, it's fat_chance_trying. And yeah, he's incredible. And his name is Chance.
Your name is actually Chance. Yes, he's more creative than I am.
Yes.
So I mean, my handle has been for a while. Like, I refer to myself in my videos as Fast Eddie, which is kind of like a double play. It's like it's also spinning off of the is it the Paul Newman character from The Hustler?
You are so old.
And Fast Eddie Felson. But because I did a lot of fasting,
yes,
and I still do fasting, but I did heavy duty fasting early on,
yes,
and I was bringing my blood sugar down and fixing my metabolism, but also because it's a joke, because when I run, I'm not fast.
Yeah.
So but yeah, and and I remember talking to him, and he kept up with it, and he hit 250 in a year.
Wow.
But same thing, like, if you get focused to say, like, I want this off my body as fast as I possibly can.
Yes.
And it's frustrating to watch people like, well, I just want to do one. I'm going to start slow, and I'm going to do this. And at the end of the day, it's their journey. They have to do what they want to do. But
I was talking about this on my walk today. I'm glad I lost 100 pounds fast. I mean, it was 100 pounds in 100 days. But
right.
Then when I hit adversity, where the body was like, we go heal a little while we kind of readjust things around, I went 10 weeks in a row without losing any weight at all.
Right.
If you got that and didn't have any previous success, it could start messing with your mind. It's still a little bit with my mind, because I'm like, wait a minute, I have an expectation level that when I do this low carb, this is what's supposed to happen. And I'm like, wow, I'm going to hit 200, 300 pounds. I didn't need to lose that much, but I'm going to lose and get all the way down in 1 year. And it just became this discouragement. At the same time, I was like, but I've lost 100 pounds. So I'm really glad that mine came off fast. And I've never understood that, well, you shouldn't lose more than 1 to 2 pounds. And if you do, it's all water weight. Water, because I lost 180 pounds in that year. Ultimately, it's so funny how culturally we psych people out of doing good things for themselves.
Exactly. And the other thing to be...
I'm sorry. Go ahead, and then I'll say my...
The other thing I was going to say is, like, be careful who you listen to, because if you listen to people who haven't done what you're doing, they don't have a first-hand perspective of what really is happening.
Yes. The other thing was, when I got down, do you have cancer?
Yeah, I had that too.
Like, wait. The same people that have told me to get off my fat ass and do something about my weight, now I've lost weight, but it's too much. Dude, guys, don't ever say that to somebody on a weight loss journey. Don't say that to anybody anyway. Don't say, oh my gosh, you look like you're anorexic. I have friends in the keto world that get that kind of feedback from people. What does that do? What good does that do?
Do you know why they look anorexic? Because everyone around you is obese and overweight. It's a matter of perspective. So when you get to a healthy and fit weight, that person looks sickly, and it's the comparison of what you looked like before.
Yeah.
I remember when I actually got cheeks.
Yes.
And it was so exciting. I was like, Karen,
or a neck,
baby, look, I've got cheeks. I have a neck now. And it's interesting. Like, you really need to become a student of your body.
Yeah.
And you need to study what's happening from the very beginning.
Yes.
And I always tell people, take measurements. Measure everything. Measure your neck, measure your chest, measure your torso, multiple places. Because what I've noticed is that when I'm really cutting weight and or I'm really losing, my body starts burning off the fat from my extremities and works its way back towards my core. So I'll notice it in my hands first. I'll notice veins, things like that. And then, I'll start shredding it through here. And then eventually it gets to my core.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is, I think people don't realize is, like, when I lost something like, I used to have a 58-inch waist. So I'm at
62 for
62. And when you get down and you say, okay, well, I went from 58 down to this, so that is like 18 inches, so that is this percentage of my weight. I'm like, no, 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 no. You're measuring linearly.
Yes.
It's volume.
Yeah.
It's actually much more.
Yes.
And you have to use that geometry that you didn't study in middle school and you didn't retain. Like, you have to use those formulas to figure out how much you've really lost, which is then even more inspiring.
Dude, if I knew about DEXA scans when I first started, I would
Right.
have done one when I was 410 and then done another one, because it'll show you, because
Yes.
you're like, oh, well, you did it the wrong way, so you lost muscle. It would show that. Or
Right.
big boned, you would actually see your bone density on a DEXA scan.
Yes.
Never done a DEXA, DXA, you guys. Go try to find a place. It's really fascinating.
You tired of playing the mask game? Me too. That's why I wanted to tell you about the Unmask. This is a breathable, completely breathable. It covers, you can't even see that it's breathable, but it's breathable. Whether you're going on a plane, having to go into a store and wearing this thing, playthemaskgame.com is how you can get this mask. They come in all kinds of colors and everything. In fact, right there, you can see right through it what it is, but when you're wearing it, it does not look like it's anything different, but it's breathable, baby. Playthemaskgame.com.
And if you live in California, it is not only easy to find, but it is cheap.
Really?
It's because I said to Karen, because we would go there for business. I said, who are the most vain people on the planet? People in Hollywood. Like, their appearance is everything.
Yeah.
So I went online before my trips and looked it up, and there was a company out there, and it was $50 a scan.
Whoa.
Oh yeah. Well, wait, the price has gone down since.
I paid $250 for one here in
Right.
Well, it was North Carolina. I had to drive to North Carolina.
Right. But now, like, this company has one in LA. Actually, I want to say it's in Pasadena, and then they've got one up in San Francisco, and then they'll even come around to your company
Whoa.
to do it if you get enough people. And now it's down to like $45 per scan. And I went back for my second scan like a year later, and I went in, and the guy's like, okay, so here's the deal. He goes, since your last scan, you've lost 1 pound of fat. And I was really upset.
Yeah.
I'm like, there's no way I should have only lost 1 pound of fat. And he goes, hold on.
Yeah.
He said, but you've added 15 pounds of muscle.
Yes.
And he said, do you realize that most people, when they add 15 pounds of muscle, also add 8 to 10 pounds of fat?
Yes.
He said, dude, whatever you're doing, keep doing it.
Yes.
And he goes, I'm not even sure what you're doing. He said, but somehow it's working out. So, I was doing low carb. I was cycling my protein. I was doing all kinds of weird and fun things that really confused my wife, because she was like, wait a minute. She goes, I can't figure out what you're doing anymore. Are you doing keto? Are you not doing keto? And I think, and that's something else I mentioned to you before when you said, what I like to talk about? It's like, too many people focus on keto being the answer, but they don't understand the point of keto and what keto really means, because they've never studied it.
Or they think keto is a diet and not a
Right.
metabolic state, because you can eat one version of keto that kind of keeps your blood sugars in order, and you have a certain ketones and a certain level of health and pursue your weight and health goals. Another person could have a lot more carbohydrate than you get to eat, maybe more protein, and yet have the exact same results as you. And so the whole idea that people think, well, just tell me what the diet is. I don't know what the keto diet is for you, because
Right.
it varies based on your metabolic health, based on what your goals are, where you are, how long have you tried to eat kind of lower carb or real food, like all of these things. But people write me all the time, Ed, just tell me what to eat. I'm like, that's not how it works.
They want the magic pill.
A magic pill.
And then it reminds me, like, when we all were eating Atkins. How many people actually picked up his book, The Diet Revolution, and read it? I mean, but almost no. I mean, everyone I talk to who said, well, I'm eating Atkins, and that means I can eat all the meat I want. And it's not really true. I mean, that wasn't the focus of what he did.
Meat, cheese.
Right.
Everybody thought it was just meat, cheese, and eggs. And I'm like, you do realize he called for 2 handfuls of green leafy vegetables a day too. They're like, oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah, depending on which state, which phase you were in. But no one knew that because no one took the time to invest in themselves to make themselves stronger and better. And what I always tell the people that I'm coaching, I was like, look, okay, mostly everybody knows that the big mistake is when you think that a body is built in the gym. And the people that know will say, no, it's actually built in the kitchen. And I say, even that's not purely right because it's built right here.
Yes.
If you fix this, then everything else can follow. You fix this, then you start eating and preparing your food and cooking better. And then the gym is it's like you're putting that puzzle together. And even like people who have weight loss surgery. Okay, like I would have done weight loss surgery if I could have afforded it or had insurance, but I didn't, so I didn't. And but even everyone there will tell you, if you don't fix this, the weight loss surgery won't hold. It won't have permanent effect on you. It doesn't work in that sense, in that situation.
Yeah, and people, they put themselves in a hole of expectations of this is what society expects, this is what I've always heard, and you just really have to be narrowly focused. I hope that's what you guys that are watching and listening today, you're getting out of this is the magic pill means hyper-focus, the hyper-focus and the consistency and the hard work and the following a plan as prescribed by the author. All of these things matter. And being willing to adjust as you get older, as situations change. So somebody recently saw my new sabbatical, the 50 thing, and he's like, why don't you go back to what you did at the beginning of your Atkins journey? And I'm going, because I'm much better now than I was then. I was having processed turkey rolled up with American cheese dipped in mayonnaise with soybean oil in it. That was how I started.
Right. And yeah, you just raise something as well. Like my wife loves helmets.
Oh,
and she's like, it's the only mayonnaise she will eat.
Here in the South, we got this mayonnaise called Duke's. And
yes, I know it. It's really good.
If Duke's made an avocado oil version of this mix, they tried to fake us out by saying made with avocado, and you turn on the back, it's still number one is soybean oil. It has some avocado in it, but they still put the highly inflammatory seed oils in there. If they made all avocado oil in there, I would buy stock in that.
Right, exactly. But I mean, that's and then the problem is processed food. They're making a buck.
Cheap.
And the cheapest thing they can put in is soybeans, sunflower. I mean, they'll put sunflower in to make it healthier, and it's still the same thing. I'm a big fan of pork rinds. Okay, I love pork rinds, and I cut back on because they are highly caloric.
Right.
And at the end of the day, if I'm trying to cut, even though they fit the keto profile, they still end up causing me to overeat my calories.
Yeah.
Which is a problem. But I live in the worst place in the world. I live in the snack capital of the planet. It's called Hanover, Pennsylvania. And we have like 7 snack food companies here. Do you know the Snyder's pretzels that you see in all the stores, the honey mustard ones? They come from here.
Yeah.
They say Snyder's of Hanover. And so, I mean, and I'm literally 4 blocks from the warehouse for a giant potato chip company, but they do make pork rinds. Now, they have all kinds of flavors there, but it's a thing. Whenever you see a flavor added to something, even if it's a noble and good food, if they add a flavor, they screw it up every time.
Yeah.
They add sugars in 3 forms.
Yeah, like sugar. They have maltodextrin. They usually even put like maybe tapioca starch to make it stick to the pork.
Right.
And there's all kind of things they do. So like I try to stay away, or if I do see a flavored one, I always read voraciously, and it's like, crap, I want barbecue flavored, but not for all that.
Right. I mean, you're better off finding a good sugar-free barbecue seasoning and doing it yourself. But the problem is that takes work
and convenience,
and it's not convenient. Exactly. And no one wants that. They want what they want the way they want. They want this perfected way, and they want it fast and easy and cheap.
I was going to make a joke there, but I'll just leave it right there. Guys, that is Ed Fackler. We don't want any fast, easy, and cheap of some things. And so Ed Fackler, he is ultra fat, the #2 ultra runner. Sorry, you made my brain go there. So
Okay.
go check him out over on Instagram. I see that you're supporting a firefighters donation page. What's that about?
Yes. My son is actually a firefighter down in Frederick County in Maryland.
Yeah.
And so with my runs, I strive to raise money for this cause, and it's the National Fallen Firefighter Foundation. They tried to get more F's in it, but really couldn't do it. And so basically, when a firefighter dies in the line of duty, that this organization comes in and helps support the family, helps take care of things, takes care of the kids. So when I ran my race, my goal was to raise money for that.
Yeah.
And they're close to us, but also it's a national organization. They cover the entire country.
So we didn't get to talk about that you're running marathons now. We ran completely out of time. We got so excited
Right.
about the magic pill part of your story. But yes, he's now running marathons as a former
No,
400.
no, not marathons.
Well, what are they?
Ultra marathons.
To insult you. Well, yeah, ultra marathon. The distinction that people don't know. That's 100 miles, right?
Well, it's officially anything beyond a marathon.
Okay.
So I mean it's you're splitting hairs. I'm splitting hairs,
The
but
one you did recently was 100 miles. Is that right?
it was 100 miles. Yes, I've done that one twice now. So and my goal.
What you're doing
I'm sorry.
for marathons.
Yes. So my goal is at the end of the year, I'm running a race in Arizona, and I'm trying to become the first person ever to lose more than 200 pounds and then subsequently run more than 200 miles in a race.
Oh, dude.
And so that's the end of this year. It's called Across the Years, and my real goal for that is 300 miles.
And in your 50s.
In my 50s as well. That's actually true.
Almost 60. Like, you are
right.
Inspiration. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Jimmy.
It was a pleasure to have you.
It's a great privilege being on your show. Thank you so much. Take care.
Get inspiration from the Living La Vida Low Carb Show. Hey, the livinglowcarbshow.com. Woo!
Have you experienced the dreaded keto flu? Did you know that most of these symptoms are actually due to your body dumping excess electrolytes? This is where Element comes in. Element is a tasty electrolyte drink mix with everything you need and nothing you don't. That means lots of salt with no sugar. Element is formulated to help anyone with their electrolyte needs and is perfectly suited to folks following a keto, low carb, or paleo diet. Element contains a science-backed electrolyte ratio, 1,000 milligrams of sodium, 200 milligrams potassium, and 60 milligrams of magnesium, with none of the junk, no sugar, no coloring, no artificial ingredients, no gluten, no fillers, no BS. Everyone needs electrolytes, especially those on low-carb diets, or if you practice intermittent or extended fasting, if you're physically active, or sweat a lot. Add Element today and see how much better you feel and perform. Use the URL drinklmnt.com/Jimmy.